A quiet wind moved across the back lot of the Aurora Grand Hotel, brushing over the cracked pavement like a secret being carried from one shadow to the next. This was the silent corner of the city where deliveries came at night, where neon signs reflected in puddles, and where people who worked with their hands moved unseen by the world that slept above them. It was here, under a lonely yellow lamp, that Ethan Rowan finished loading the last pallet of frozen pastries. He wiped his hands on his jacket and exhaled gently. It was almost midnight, and all he wanted now was to drive home, unlock his small house on Maple Street, and peek into his daughter's room just to watch her sleep. On his truck dashboard, she had taped a drawing, a crooked little picture of him with a crown on his head, holding her hand. Every night, after the last delivery, he tapped the drawing lightly before turning the key. Tonight, he didn't make it to the driver's side door. Something on the ground flickered, just for a second, a tiny glint, like a star had dropped onto dirty asphalt. Ethan paused, knelt slowly, and brushed aside a thin sheet of rainwater. There, lying almost too perfectly in the open, was a bracelet, heavy, cold, made of diamonds that caught the lamp's glow and fractured it into tiny colors. He lifted it gently. This wasn't costume jewelry. This wasn't lost by accident. This belonged to someone who lived on the top floors of places like this. People who never saw the back lot. People who would never believe a delivery driver found something worth more than half his year's pay. He turned it over in his hand once, thinking it could help with rent, with bills, with Lily's new shoes. But he didn't feel temptation, only a quiet sense of responsibility. He didn't pick it up like treasure, only like something that wasn't his to keep. Inside the lobby, the night clerk, Daniel, blinked twice, then stared. "You found this? Out there?" "Near the East Delivery Bay," Ethan replied softly. "You want to leave your name for return?" Ethan shook his head. No reward needed. Daniel tried to protest, but Ethan simply nodded and walked out. He didn't know the night was far from done with him. It was close to 12:10 a.m. when Ethan turned onto his quiet street. The houses were dark, peaceful, the kind of street where neighbors nodded but never asked too many questions. He parked, stepped out, locked the truck, and looked up at the soft light glowing from Lily's window. She always left it on for him. A small smile tugged at his lips. Then headlights swept over the street. Not one, not two, three. 3 black SUVs rolled toward his house, engines humming in perfect sync. Not fast, not loud, just controlled. All 3 stopped in front of his home like they had rehearsed the moment. Doors opened. Men in suits stepped out first. Then a woman emerged. Tall, poised, wrapped in a white coat that looked too expensive for midnight visits. Her hair was pulled back tightly, and she carried herself with a kind of quiet command that didn't need volume. Elena Sterling. Half the city knew her name. The other half owed her money. She climbed his porch steps, the wooden planks creaking softly under her heels, and held up a sealed evidence bag. Inside, the bracelet shined under his porch light. "You're Ethan Rowan." Not a question, a certainty. Ethan nodded. "You return this tonight," she said. Her voice was calm, but beneath that calm was something else. Grief pressed thin, fear smoothed over with authority. "It was lying outside the back lot," he said quietly. "This bracelet," she whispered, "belonged to my mother." Her eyes lowered, her voice trembling just enough to reveal she wasn't here for business. "Someone stole it from my suite." Ethan's brow furrowed. "A theft?" Her security chief stepped forward, his tone firm. "We reviewed footage. The thief entered her suite. But what matters is what happened afterward." He paused, looking directly at Ethan. "Whoever took this placed it exactly in your path." Ethan felt something shift inside him, like a quiet alarm going off in the back of his mind. "Why me?" he asked. "We don't know yet," Elena replied. "But I need you at Sterling Tower tomorrow morning. 10 o'clock. You're involved now, whether you meant to be or not." She didn't sound threatening. She sounded unsettled, like the ground beneath her life had tilted suddenly. Ethan glanced toward the window where Lily slept. "I have a daughter," he said quietly. "I can't—" "You're not in trouble," Elena interrupted softly. "And I'm not here to disrupt your life. I just need answers. And I think you do too. Before leaving, she handed him a small white envelope. My private number, she said. And one more thing. Her voice lowered. If anyone comes to your door tonight and they're not wearing the sterling crest on their earpiece, do not open it. The warning chilled him more than the late-night visit. Within seconds, her convoy melted back into the darkness, leaving Ethan standing alone on his porch with the envelope in his hand. He watched the street for a long moment, sensing something invisible had shifted. Something that wasn't done with him. Something that felt personal. He went inside, closed the door quietly, and checked on Lily. She slept peacefully, face turned toward the lamp, her hand curled around a stuffed bear. For a moment, the world felt small and safe again, but that feeling did not last long. At 1:50 a.m., unable to sleep, he opened the envelope Elena had given him. Inside was her card, and something else he hadn't noticed. A photograph, a small Polaroid. On it, a hand passing the bracelet to someone in a dark hallway. On the corner of the sleeve, a tiny symbol embroidered into the cuff, the sterling crest. Under the photo, Elena had written a single line. There's more you need to see. Come tomorrow. Ethan set the photo down slowly. A sense of unease settled into him. Not loud, not panicked, just a quiet certainty. This wasn't about a bracelet. This wasn't about a theft. Someone had placed something valuable in his path on purpose. Someone wanted him to be involved. Someone who knew his roots, his schedule, his life. Someone who knew he would return it. He closed the envelope, walked to Lily's room, and watched her breathe. He whispered a promise he meant with everything he had. You're safe. Nothing's getting past me. He didn't see the dark sedan parked 2 houses down. Engine off. Lights out. A silhouette watching his window through the darkness. When a car drove by, the figure slipped deeper into the shadows. Ethan didn't see it. Not yet. But tomorrow, everything would start to make sense, and everything would become much, much more dangerous. The morning light hit Sterling Tower like it was built to hold the sun itself. The glass shimmered, the steel gleamed, and the entire place carried that quiet, wealthy confidence that told the world, nothing bad happens here. But something had, and Ethan Rowan was walking straight toward it. The black sedan dropped him at the private entrance behind the building, where the concrete was clean enough to reflect the sky. The driver opened the door for him with a respectful nod, and for a moment Ethan felt strangely out of place, like someone who had stepped into a story he didn't ask to be written into. Elena Sterling was already waiting for him. She wasn't dressed like the night before. No white coat, no guarded armor. Today she wore a simple charcoal suit, hair tied back loosely, a subtle shadow under her eyes like sleep had avoided her. Thank you for coming, she said softly. Ethan nodded. You said you had something to show me. Yeah, she replied. And I think you'll understand why I couldn't explain it last night. Her voice held the same quiet fear she tried to hide. The fear of someone who lived a life where problems were solved with money, influence, or security, only to face one that none of those tools could reach. She led him into a conference room where a large screen was already lit, paused on a still frame of her suite's hallway. 2 security officers stood silently by the wall, exchanging glances as Ethan walked in. With a small nod from Elena, the guard played the footage. The first clip showed the hallway outside Elena's suite. The lights were soft, the carpet pristine, the air heavy with that expensive silence only luxury hotels have. A hooded man walked up the hall, paused, glanced behind him, and slipped a key card into the lock. Not hotel staff, Elena murmured. Not in our system. The second clip played. The thief exited her suite minutes later, breathing fast, clutching something in his pocket. Watch this part, Elena said, stepping slightly closer to Ethan. A new camera angle appeared. The service corridor behind the luxury wing. The thief hurried down the steps and stopped. Someone was waiting for him. A second man, face hidden beneath a cap pulled low, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed in a way that didn't match the frantic thief. This wasn't a partner. This was someone used to watching others panic. The thief spoke to him briefly, then handed him an envelope. The second man slipped money into the thief's hand in return. He paid him, Ethan whispered. Yes, Elena replied. Paid him, and then did this. The next camera switched on. The back lot, empty, quiet, the exact place Ethan had been loading pallets hours later. The second man stepped into frame. He crouched. He placed something small on the ground. He stood. He walked away calmly. The camera zoomed in. The bracelet, the one Ethan had found. He stared at the screen, a chill running under his ribs. That's not random, he murmured. No, Elena said. It was meant for you. She motioned to her guard, who stepped forward with an evidence bag. Inside lay a small envelope, worn, slightly creased. Ethan recognized the handwriting before he even opened it. His world stilled. He tore the flap open slowly, almost afraid of what waited inside. A single line, 4 words. He found me again. Signed, Mamaika. Ethan closed his eyes, breath trembling for the first time in years. He hadn't expected this. Not in his deepest memories. Not in his darkest corners. Micah Graves, his partner, his brother in the field, the man who died in an operation that went horribly wrong. Except, maybe he didn't die. Elena stepped closer, her voice soft. Who is he, Ethan? He didn't answer right away. He stared at the letter, weighing years of silence and guilt. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. He was someone who should have come home. Someone who didn't. Elena didn't push further. We have more footage, her security chief said, hesitation in his eyes. Something from inside the tower this morning. Ethan straightened. What happened? We picked up movement on a restricted floor. Someone bypassed an elevator lock. Elena looked at him carefully. Come with me. He followed them through a quiet hallway until they reached a stairwell door. A security officer swiped his badge, but the light stayed red. It's locked from the inside, the guard said. Ethan's eyes narrowed. That's not a security glitch. That's deliberate. He pushed the door open with surprising strength. The stairwell was dim, too dim, the kind of dim that had intention behind it. He stepped inside. A whisper of air drifted from below. Then a voice, calm, smooth, almost conversational, floated up the stairs. Mr. Rowan, you're early. Ethan froze mid-step. Elena's breath hitched behind him. A man in a cap stood halfway down the stairwell, face hidden in the shadow of the brim, 1 foot on the step, one hand resting loosely on the railing, as if he had been waiting for hours. He tilted his head slightly. You got the letter. Good. Ethan's jaw tightened. Where is he? The man smiled gently. You'll see him soon. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone, a small scratch device. He pressed play. A voice crackled through the stairwell. Ethan, if you're hearing this, he found me. Don't trust. The message cut abruptly into static. Micah, alive, afraid, running. Elena covered her mouth, eyes wide. Ethan stepped down 1 step, every muscle ready, but every movement controlled and calm. What do you want? He asked. The man chuckled. That's the real question, isn't it? Then he tossed something upward. Ethan reacted instantly, instincts snapping awake. He grabbed Elena, pulled her down, shielding her body as a blinding flash exploded midair. A low, controlled thump echoed through the stairwell. A flashbang. The world washed white. Ethan held Elena close until the sound faded. When the light softened and the ringing in their ears quieted, the stairwell was empty. The man was gone. Elena leaned against the wall, trembling but trying to keep her voice steady. Ethan, what is happening? He looked down the empty stairwell, breathing slowly to settle the storm building inside him. This isn't about your bracelet, and it's not about your hotel. Then what? She whispered. It's about me, he said softly. Someone wants me out of hiding. Someone who knows my past. Her voice cracked. Why use my family, my staff? Why put us in danger? He looked at her, calm, steady, gentle. Because using you was the fastest way to get to me. Her eyes widened. And what would make you come out of hiding? He didn't hesitate. My daughter. Silence settled in the stairwell, heavy but honest. They returned to the conference room. The rest of the day unfolded in fragments of fear and fragments of clarity. They found the thief. He confessed quickly. He was paid double to steal the bracelet and leave it in a specific place. They traced the envelope. It wasn't from the thief. It wasn't from Elena. It came from someone else. Someone who knew Ethan personally. Someone who knew Micah. They found the handler, the man who paid the thief. He bore a tattoo Ethan recognized from operations no one spoke of anymore. Someone was staging events like chess moves. Someone who enjoyed making people react. Someone who wanted Ethan Rowan to step forward again after 5 silent years. By evening, the chase led them to a warehouse lit only by dawn. Inside, they found files, burner phones, and a small recorder holding the last faint echo of Micah's voice. It was real. Micah was alive, and someone was using him as bait. Elena looked at Ethan in the command van, her voice small but steady. "You didn't ask for this." "No," Ethan said quietly, "but running won't help anyone." "What will?" she asked. He exhaled, calm and certain. "Facing whoever did this, on my terms." Her breath slowed. "And until then?" He looked at her with the same softness he used when talking to Lily. "I'll protect you." Outside in the fading light, a motorcycle engine purred quietly in the shadows. A rider lifted a phone. "He's awake," the rider said. "He's moving." A low voice on the other end replied, "Good, let him come." The call ended, and the game continued. The rain had stopped by dawn, but the world still carried that quiet heaviness people feel after a long, uncertain night. Ethan Rowan stood outside the warehouse, watching police tape flutter softly in the morning breeze. The building behind him held nothing but fragments. Half-burned paperwork, wiped hard drives, empty boxes, and the faint smell of gasoline. Whatever had been here was never meant to be found. Detective Park approached him slowly. "No ID on the handler," he said. "He's not talking, or he's too afraid to talk." Ethan nodded, eyes thoughtful, calm. Fear can silence people faster than loyalty. Park studied him. Ethan wasn't rattled. He wasn't angry. He wasn't panicking. He just stood with the stillness of someone who had survived things louder and darker than anyone here knew how to imagine. Inside the mobile command van, Elena Sterling sat in a corner, fingers interlocked. Her expression caught somewhere between fear and guilt. When Ethan stepped in, she straightened. "We found something," she said, sliding a folder across the table. Ethan opened it. Inside were freeze frames pulled from traffic cameras around the city. Different angles, different streets, same motorcycle. In each frame, the rider's face was hidden, but the jacket was the same, the posture the same, the calmness the same. "He's been following you," Elena said softly. "Since the night you returned the bracelet." Ethan closed the folder quietly. "It's not me he wants," he murmured. "Then who?" she asked. He looked at her with the soft gravity of truth. "Micah." A beat. "And now, whoever Micah trusted." Elena swallowed. "Meaning me." He didn't deny it. She exhaled, eyes trembling slightly. "I'm sorry you're being pulled back into something you never wanted." Ethan shook his head gently. This was never going to stay buried. Someone made sure of that. Detective Reeves entered then, urgency in her steps. "We traced a call from the handler's burner phone," she said. "Location pinged from an abandoned textile mill on Harbor Line Road. It's quiet, isolated, fits the pattern." Elena looked at Ethan. "You think he's there?" "No," Ethan said softly, "but something will be. Something he wants us to see." They headed out. 2 police cars, the command van, and a quiet black sedan carrying Ethan and Elena. The city slowly disappeared behind them as the roads turned narrower and more industrial. Old street lamps flickered. Broken fences lined the streets. This was a place forgotten by most, except by people who needed hiding spaces. When they reached the mill, the air smelled of rust and wet concrete. The building towered above them, its windows broken, its doors hanging crooked. Detective Park checked his weapon. Ethan didn't carry one. Hadn't for years. "You stay behind me," Park said. Ethan shook his head. "No, stay behind me." Park studied him for a moment, then stepped aside. Inside, the silence was thick. Their footsteps echoed softly as they moved deeper. Dust floated in narrow beams of light. A metallic clink echoed from a far corner. Faint, deliberate. Reeves signaled to split left. Park motioned right. Ethan walked straight toward the sound, and then he saw it. A chair, a small table, a recorder sitting on top. Elena arrived behind him, breath-catching. A note lay beneath the recorder. "Play it." Ethan pressed the button. Micah's voice filled the empty mill. Weaker now, strained, like someone talking through pain. "Ethan, if you're hearing this, they're close. Don't trust the man in the cap. Don't trust anyone he sends. They want you. They want your skills. They want your past. They want to pull you back." The recording crackled. "They used me as bait because they know you don't walk away from people. Not ever. I'm sorry, I didn't want this for you. I didn't want this for your daughter." Another crackle. "Ethan, they're not going to stop. He's not going to stop. He wants a war, and he wants you at the center of it." Static swallowed the final seconds. The recorder clicked off. Elena looked at Ethan, her expression trembling with fear. "Who wants you, Ethan? Who is doing this?" Ethan's voice remained calm. Too calm, like a river hiding a current beneath its surface. "The broker." The name floated in the empty air, settling like dust. Reeves stepped closer. "Who is he?" Ethan shook his head. "No one knows his real face. He recruits soldiers who vanish from records, operatives who disappear. He buys loyalty with leverage, families, debts, guilt, anything he can twist." Elena whispered. "And Micah?" "He wasn't killed in that operation," Ethan said quietly. "He was taken, recruited, used." "And now?" she asked. "Now he's trying to warn me." Park suddenly radioed from outside, and then his voice sharp, tense. "Movement, east exit." Everyone ran toward the sliding door. Park and Reeves took positions behind abandoned crates. Elena stayed behind Ethan, breathing quick but controlled. A motorcycle engine roared outside. The rider, the same one from every camera frame, the same posture, the same calmness. He sped across the gravel, circling them once, not attacking, not fleeing, just making sure they saw him. Then he slowed. For a moment, he looked directly at Ethan. Not a threat, not a challenge, a message. Ethan stepped forward, unafraid. "Where is Micah?" he called out, voice steady. The rider lifted a hand and pointed upward, to the roof of the old mill. Then he turned sharply and disappeared down the narrow road, tires kicking up dust. Park muttered, "We lost him again." "No," Ethan said softly. "He wanted us to look up." They rushed back inside. Ethan climbed the rusted stairs to the roof access. The others followed. When he pushed open the door, cold wind hit them, and in the center of the rooftop sat a metal case. Ethan approached carefully. Elena stood beside him, shaking. "What is it?" she whispered. He opened the latch slowly. Inside, a GPS tracker, a burner phone, and a photograph. Elena covered her mouth. Micah, alive, tied to a chair, eyes open, terrified but conscious. A timestamp at the bottom. Today. 4:15 a.m. Ethan exhaled, not loudly, not with panic, only with the heavy weight of someone who has just had every doubt replaced with certainty. "He's alive," Elena whispered. "Yes. And the broker?" Ethan stared at the photo. "He's inviting me." Reeves looked at him, confused. "Inviting you?" Ethan nodded. "He doesn't want a war. Not yet. He wants to see whether I'll chase him." Elena placed a shaking hand on the edge of the case. "Will you?" Ethan's eyes softened, the same softness he used when tucking Lily in at night. "I don't leave people behind," he said quietly. "Not Micah. Not anyone." The wind brushed past them, carrying the distant hum of traffic and something else. Something that felt like the beginning of a long, painful road. Elena stepped closer. "You won't do this alone? I'm with you." Ethan turned to her, gentle concern in his voice. "You don't need to be involved anymore." "Yes," she whispered, "I do. Someone dragged me into this, into your past, into your danger. They wanted to use me, so use me right back. Let me help." He didn't argue. Her voice steadied. "Ethan, you're not just a delivery driver, not just a father. There's something in you people like him want. Something they're afraid of. Ethan closed the case slowly. And something I walked away from. Reeves approached, radio in hand. What now? Ethan looked at the photograph of Micah again. Really looked. And for the first time since this began, emotion flickered through his calm exterior. We find him. And the broker? Elena asked quietly. Ethan straightened, calm, steady, certain. When I find Micah, the broker will find me. They walked down the stairs together. Outside, the road stretched long into the distance. The same road the rider had taken moments before. It looked quiet now, but Ethan knew better. Somewhere out there, the broker waited. Somewhere out there, Micah was still breathing. And as Ethan stepped into the sunlight, the wind caught the edge of his jacket, revealing a small drawing tucked in his pocket. Lily's drawing of him with a crooked crown, his reason, his anchor, his line in the sand. He whispered, I'm coming, brother. And then under his breath, no one takes the people I love. The story wasn't ending. It was just opening its next chapter.